You know, right now, as we speak, there is a slow, totally invisible battle happening right above your head. It's quiet, it's relentless, and honestly, if you aren't paying attention to it, it could end up costing you thousands of dollars down the line. We all kind of take the roofs over our heads for granted every single day, right? But they are actually these incredibly complex structural systems that are constantly fighting off the absolute worst of what nature has to throw at them.
So, hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. Today we are looking at The Weather-Beaten Roof, a case study in structural survival. To really wrap our heads around this invisible war, we're going to look at a prime example, the homes in Berwyn, Illinois, right in the heart of Cook County. By analyzing how these specific structures survive some of the most dramatic temperature swings in the entire country, we can learn exactly how to protect our own investments. Okay, let's dive into this.
Here's our quick roadmap for today. We'll cover extreme weather versus roofs, anatomy of roof failures, structural solutions and codes, the three-step fix, and finally, protecting your investment. All right, Section 1, Extreme Weather versus Roofs, the environmental threat.
So we're looking at a climate here that experiences massive, and I mean massive, temperature swings. On one extreme, you've got sub-zero winters. These freezing temperatures create trapped moisture and really dangerous ice dams. And this brilliantly illustrates the flip side too, because on the exact opposite end, you have summers that easily climb well into the 90s. That intense baking heat actually causes shingles to physically expand, and it completely breaks down their vital adhesive seals. It's this brutal, constant freeze-thaw cycle that forces roofing materials to constantly expand and contract until, well, eventually they just break.
And when that constant expansion and contraction happens, it actively breaks down the defenses of a home. It's like a domino effect of damage. First, the weather breaks down those adhesive seals. Boom! That instantly creates tiny water entry points. Then, the harsh winter winds roll in and easily tear at those weakened, loose shingles. And finally, heavy spring rains arrive and mercilessly test every single valley and joint on the entire roof. This is a huge, huge problem for older housing stock, especially stuff like the vintage brick bungalows and historic homes found in areas like Berwyn, because their original roof decking really struggles against modern weather extremes.
Moving on to Section 2, Anatomy of Roof Failures. Let's look at exactly how the elements break in.
Okay, so the absolute biggest winter villain for your house is the ice dam. By definition, an ice dam is a solid buildup of ice at the cold eaves of your roof. But here are the fascinating and kind of scary mechanics of how it forms. Heat escapes from a poorly insulated attic, right? That heat melts the snow on the higher parts of the roof. That water runs down, but when it hits the freezing cold eaves at the very edge, it refreezes. This creates a literal wall of ice that completely blocks proper drainage. So where does all the new melted snow go? It backs up, gets forced right underneath your shingles, and just pours directly into your attic and down your walls. But listen, winter isn't the only threat here. Get a load of this incredible fact. Poor ventilation actually cooks your shingles from underneath, literally cutting their lifespan in half. A roof is essentially a breathing system. If your attic lacks balanced intake and exhaust ventilation, it just traps all that intense summer heat and moisture inside. And you aren't just dealing with damaged shingles at that point. Actually, scratch that. It's way worse than just shingles. You are dealing with massive decking rot and mold growth hiding right above your ceiling. Now, we can translate the visual symptoms you might see around your house directly into structural realities. It's like a giant puzzle. If you see granules collecting in your gutter, that means your asphalt shingles are actively breaking down. If you see gaps in the metal flashing, say around your chimney or a skylight, it means the metal is corroding and separating. Fun fact, on brick homes, the flashing often fails way before the actual shingles do. And of course, if you see dark spots on your ceiling, that means you have an active, ongoing water leak. Let's jump to Section 3, Structural Solutions and Codes. This is the science of the fix. Remember those disastrous ice dams we were just talking about? Well, here is the ultimate defense against them, the ice-water barrier. This thing is a highly specialized, self-sealing membrane that is actually strictly mandated by modern building codes in places like Illinois. When a roofer drives a nail through this barrier, it literally seals itself right around the nail. It's amazing. This prevents water intrusion even when a massive ice dam is blocking all the normal drainage along the eaves or in the valleys of your roof. And building codes definitely aren't vague about how to use this stuff.
Cook County building codes, for example, require this ice water barrier to extend a very specific distance, 24 inches past the interior wall line. That is an exact mathematical requirement, and it's designed specifically to protect the absolute most vulnerable parts of the roof overhang, which is where those ice dams are basically guaranteed to form. There's also an exact science to fixing that cooked shingle problem we mentioned. The building officials and Code International recommend a very specific ventilation rule. You need exactly 1 square foot of free ventilation area for every 150 square feet of attic space. But here's the catch. Volume alone isn't enough. You absolutely need balanced airflow. That means pairing intake vents down at the soffits with exhaust vents all the way up at the ridge of the roof. Doing this creates a continuous, cooling wash of air right under the decking. So, the crucial point is, how does a professional replacement actually happen without turning your entire life into a chaotic construction zone? That brings us to Section 4, the 3-step fix, the professional process.
Professional roofing contractors have really streamlined this process to eliminate wasted time and, frankly, a lot of homeowner confusion. It breaks down into 3 core steps. First up is the inspection and estimate. This is where they examine the roof, check the attic ventilation, and look at the decking to identify every single problem and provide a written plan. Second is the professional installation, which covers pulling permits, ensuring code compliance, and actually applying the new system. And third is the final inspection and cleanup, ensuring all the warranty standards are met and your yard is totally safe to walk in again.
Now, what really surprises most homeowners is how fast this whole shebang actually happens. A standard residential roof replacement usually only takes 1 to 3 days. No way, right? But it's true. Day 1 is all about protecting your landscaping and completely tearing off the old materials. Day 2 is repairing any of that structural decking damage and installing the brand new system. And Day 3 is all about the final cleanup. They even use these specialized magnetic nail rollers to comb through your grass and pick up dangerous metal debris, so there's zero chance of anyone stepping on a stray nail or ruining a car tire. Let's wrap things up with Section 5, protecting your investment, proactive maintenance. Let's start this section with a very common and honestly very tempting homeowner question. You might be wondering, can I just re-roof right over my old shingles to save some money? Well, the short answer is technically yes. Some local building codes might allow you to put 1 new layer over existing materials, but the real answer? You absolutely shouldn't. Re-roofing over old shingles might save you some cash in the short term, but it completely hides underlying moisture problems and rot. And, more importantly, it prevents the roofers from actually inspecting and repairing the wooden decking underneath. Doing a complete tear-off is going to last you far, far longer and prevents an absolute long-term disaster. You also have to think about your homeowner's insurance here. Here is the harsh reality of insurance claims. If your roof suffers sudden, unexpected damage, like from crazy storms, hail, high winds, or falling trees, that is typically covered. But claims are routinely denied if the insurance company deems the damage to be from normal wear and tear or from poor maintenance. Basically, if you neglect your roof and it springs a leak, you are paying for that out of your own pocket. To make sure you never end up on the denied side of that chart, you really need a basic maintenance checklist. Industry experts strongly recommend scheduling professional inspections twice a year, once in the spring to catch any winter ice damage, and once in the fall to prepare for those freezing months ahead. You should also be checking for damage immediately after major storms, regularly inspecting your metal flashing and attic ventilation, and, I can't stress this enough, always keep those gutters clear of leaves and debris so water can actually drain properly. Which leaves us with one final, absolutely vital question for you to consider today. Next time you are just sitting around in your living room, I want you to look up at your ceiling and ask yourself, is your roof really ready for the next freeze-thaw cycle? Because understanding the science of how your home breathes, flexes, and fights the weather, that is the very first step in ensuring that the invisible battle happening above your head is one you continue to win. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will see you all next time.